My name is Aaron Wallace. I'm 41, and the last time my family saw me, I was being handcuffed in their driveway. That was 8 years ago. 8 years since my brother Marcus called the police on me, claiming I was high on something and dangerous to the kids. 8 years since my mother chose his word over mine. Since my father looked at me with disgust and said I was no daughter of his. 8 years since they watched me get dragged away in a squad car, while the neighbors whispered and pointed. They never asked what really happened. They never questioned why the charges were mysteriously dropped 3 days later. They just moved on without me. I became the family shame. The cautionary tale whispered about at Christmas dinners I was no longer invited to. Poor Erin, they'd say, such potential. But she threw it all away on drugs. Marcus would shake his head sadly whenever my name came up, playing the concerned brother so well that even I almost believed his performance. The truth, I was working undercover for the DEA, 18 months deep in a methamphetamine distribution network that stretched from Atlanta to Miami. The arrest was staged, part of an elaborate operation to establish my credibility with the very people my family thought I'd become. But my cover was so deep, so complete, that even those closest to me couldn't know, especially those closest to me. The hardest part wasn't the dangerous work or the sleepless nights. It wasn't dodging bullets or earning the trust of killers. It was watching my family's faces that night, seeing genuine fear and disappointment where there should have been trust. Seeing Marcus' calculated satisfaction as he painted himself the hero, protecting everyone from his unstable sister. But Marcus had his own secrets. While I was risking my life to take down drug networks, he was building one of his own. Small time at first, stealing prescription pads from the medical practice where he worked as a technician, selling pills to college kids. Then he got greedy, started cooking meth in the basement of the family lake house, the same place where we'd spent summers as children. I knew because I'd been tracking him for 6 months. The irony was exquisite. While my family mourned the daughter they thought they'd lost to drugs, their golden boy, Marcus, the responsible one. Marcus, the family favorite, was becoming everything they feared I had become. And he was good at it. Careful, used his medical knowledge to create a purer product, his natural charm, to build a loyal customer base. He almost got away with it. The day of the raid was deliberately chosen. Our parents' 40th wedding anniversary. The whole extended family would be there. Aunts, uncles, cousins, family, friends. Marcus had planned it perfectly, knowing that after 8 years of silence, I wouldn't dare show my face at such an important family gathering. He was half right. I did show up, just not the way he expected. I arrived at 3:17 p.m., in an unmarked black SUV, followed by 3D tactical vehicles and a command unit. The anniversary party was in full swing in the backyard. White tablecloths, string lights, the works. Through the window, I could see Marcus holding court at the head table, regaling everyone with some story that had them laughing. The same smile he de-warned 8 years ago when he called 911. I watched for a moment before getting out of the vehicle. My partner, Agent Sarah Chen, adjusted her bulletproof vest and looked at me with concern. "You sure you're ready for this, Wallace?" I straightened my D windbreaker and checked my service weapon one last time. I'd been ready for 8 years. The look on my mother's face when I walked through the back gate was priceless. Pure shock, like she was seeing a ghost. Conversations died mid-sentence. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. My cousin Janet actually dropped her wine glass. "Aaron," my mother's voice was barely a whisper. "What are you? How did you?" I kept walking toward the head table, my badge clearly visible on my chest, my team flanking me on both sides. Marcus had gone very still, but his smile remained fixed in place. Always the performer. "Hello, Mother. Dad." I nodded to each of them respectfully. Marcus, my brother, recovered quickly, spreading his arms wide in a gesture of welcome. Well, look who finally decided to grace us with her presence. And in costume, no less. He gestured at my tactical gear, playing to the crowd. "What are you supposed to be, sis? Some kind of cop?" The laughter that rippled through the crowd was nervous, uncertain. They wanted to laugh with him, but something in my posture, in the way my team had positioned themselves, made them hesitate. "Da Special Agent Aaron Wallace," I said clearly, my voice carrying across the sudden silence. "Badge number 2847. And you're right, Marcus. I am some kind of cop." I pulled out my credentials, letting them see the federal badge, the identification that proved I wasn't playing dress-up. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. Special Agent Wallace, I continued, my voice professional and cold, has been conducting an 80-month investigation into a methamphetamine distribution network operating out of this county. Said investigation culminated this morning with the arrest of 17 individuals, the seizure of 43 pounds of crystal methamphetamine, and the recovery of approximately $200,000 in drug proceeds. I paused, letting that sink in. My father looked confused, but my mother was beginning to understand. She always was the smarter one. The investigation also revealed, I continued, that the primary manufacturing location for this network was a residential property at 1247 Lakeshore Drive. Property records showed this address is owned by Robert and Linda Wallace. I looked directly at my parents. Your lake house, my mother actually gasped. My father started to stand, but Agent Chen's hand on his shoulder encouraged him to stay seated. Now, I said, turning my full attention to Marcus. I have a federal warrant for the arrest of the individual we've identified as the head of this operation. The man who's been using our family property to cook and distribute methamphetamine. The man who's been poisoning this community for profit. Marcus' smile finally cracked. Aaron, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but Marcus, James Wallace, I interrupted, nodding to my team. You're under arrest for manufacturing and distributing controlled substances, money laundering, and operating a continuing criminal enterprise. The moment Agent Chen snapped the handcuffs on my brother's wrists was the moment 8 years of hurt, anger, and betrayal crystallized into something pure and clean. Justice. But I wasn't done. You see, I said, addressing the stunned crowd as Marcus was read his rights. 8 years ago, my brother called the police and had me arrested. He told our family I was on drugs, that I was dangerous. He watched them drag me away and never once asked if I was okay. Never once wondered if there might be another explanation. I walked closer to my parents who were clutching each other's hands like lifelines. That arrest was part of my cover identity. I was 18 months into the most dangerous undercover operation of my career, infiltrating the Morales cartel's southeastern distribution network. I couldn't tell you who I really was or what I was really doing because it would have compromised the operation and put dozens of lives at risk, including yours. My mother was crying now, soft tears streaming down her face. But Marcus knew exactly what he was doing that night. He'd been dealing pills for 6 months by then, and he was paranoid. He thought I was getting too close to the truth, so he made sure I'd be discredited. Made sure that if I ever did try to expose him, no one would believe the drug addict sister. I looked around at the faces of people who'd known me my entire life. Neighbors who'd crossed the street when they saw me coming in the years after my arrest. Family friends who'd whispered about my fall from grace. The beautiful irony, I continued, is that while you all spent 8 years mourning the daughter you thought you'd lost to drugs, your golden boy was becoming the very thing you feared I had become. The only difference is I was fighting the war on drugs. Marcus was profiting from it. Agent Chen approached with Marcus securely in custody. His face had gone completely white, and for the first time in 8 years, he had nothing to say. Before we take Mr. Wallace into custody, I announced I should mention that as part of our investigation, we've also recovered financial records showing he's been systematically stealing from his employer, Memorial Medical Practice, for the past 3 years. Dr. Harrison has already been contacted and is cooperating with federal investigators. That broke my father. He buried his face in his hands and started sobbing. Great heaving sobs that shook his entire body. My mother just stared at me with wide, horrified eyes. Aaron, she whispered. Oh, sweetheart, we didn't know. We never knew. No, I said quietly. You didn't ask. I watched as they loaded Marcus into the back of a federal transport vehicle. His perfectly styled hair now disheveled, his expensive shirt wrinkled. 8 years of carefully constructed lies crumbling in the span of 10 minutes. Agent Chen handed me a thick manila folder. Property seizure documents, she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The lake house, 3 vehicles, and all financial assets connected to the drug operation per federal asset forfeit laws. I opened the folder and flipped through the papers, making sure my parents could see the official seals, the federal court stamps. Unfortunately, I said, this means the lake house will need to be seized as evidence. I know it's been in the family for 30 years, but federal law is very clear about properties used in drug manufacturing. My father looked up from his hands, his face stirred with tears. We'll lose the house. Almost certainly. The contamination from meth production makes it uninhabitable. Anyway, The cleanup costs alone would be more than the property is worth. I closed the folder and tucked it under my arm. I'll need statements from both of you confirming that you had no knowledge of the illegal activity taking place on your property. Agent Chen will contact you to schedule interviews. As I turned to leave, my mother grabbed my arm. Aaron, please, can we talk privately? I looked down at her hand on my sleeve. 8 years ago, this same hand had slapped me across the face. When I tried to explain that things weren't what they seemed. 8 years of silence. 8 years of choosing Marcus' version of events over any possibility that their daughter might be telling the truth. Agent Wallace, Agent Chin called from the SUV. We need to move. I gently pulled my arm free from my mother's grasp. I'm sorry. I'm needed elsewhere. But as I walked away, I heard my father's voice, broken and desperate. We failed you. Oh God, Aaron, we failed you. I stopped walking. For just a moment, I was 8 years old again, running to my father after skinning my knee, trusting completely that he would make everything better. Then I remembered the look on his face when he called me. No, daughter of his. And the moment passed. Yes, I said without turning around. You did. The drive back to the field office was quiet. Agent Chen kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror, but I stared out the window at the familiar streets of my hometown, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. You okay? She finally asked. Yeah, I said, and surprised myself by meaning it. I think I really am. 3 weeks later, Marcus was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. The lake house was demolished after environmental services declared it uninhabitable due to chemical contamination. My parents lost their life savings, paying for lawyers and cleanup costs. I didn't attend the sentencing. I was in Kolya, working another case, doing what I do best, taking down the people who poison communities for profit. My mother sends me letters now, long handwritten apologies that arrive at my office every few weeks. She tells me about the family dinners that are too quiet now, about how my father hasn't been the same since that day. She begs for forgiveness, for a chance to make things right. I file them away unread after the first few lines. Because some betrayals cut too deep to heal, and some truths come too late to matter. They chose Marcus over me when it counted, when I needed them to trust me, despite the evidence of their own eyes. They chose the comfortable lie over the difficult truth. But I also learned something that day, standing in that backyard, surrounded by the ruins of Marcus' carefully constructed deception. I didn't need their approval or their love to be whole. I had found my own family in the DEA, people who trusted me with their lives and whom I trusted with mine. Sometimes the greatest revenge isn't about making someone pay. Sometimes it's about realizing that their opinion never mattered as much as you thought it did. Sometimes it's about walking away and never looking back. My name is Aaron Wallace. I'm 41 years old and I'm a D Special Agent who has spent the last decade protecting communities from the very poison my own brother was spreading. And for the first time in 8 years, I sleep peacefully at night.